The government of Guyana, in association with the Caribbean Development Bank (CDB), launched two critical projects to enhance traceability for food products and achieve export certification for bovines, that is, cattle. The two projects are the development of food products traceability system for pineapples and leafy greens in Guyana, and the bovine tuberculosis and the bovine brucellosis project to improve market access. These projects will be executed through funding from grants from the CDB's Special Funds resources, totaling approximately £636,000 sterling, or approximately 163 million Guyana dollars. Speaking at the event, Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa said the launch of this important project will address critical challenges while unlocking new opportunities for growth and development in the agriculture sector. Referring to the comments of an earlier speaker, Minister Mustafa said the government of Guyana recognizes that a strong regulatory system is key to food production systems that perform as they should. He stressed that getting this equation right will go a long way to the region realizing the goal of reducing its food import bill by 25% by 2025.
Our president would have already instructed that we look at to modernize our framework, our regulatory framework in the country. That is why before the heads of government meeting in Guyana, we are working very aggressively. We want to put out a food security bill, take it to the National Assembly so that we can have those frameworks in place. We are working very aggressively on that. We are looking to see how we can also look at a regional food safety bill around the region so we can incorporate the region as an entity. Over the years, before 2020, we had a lot of regions, or a lot of countries, that were underperforming because there was never the political will in CARICOM to move this process forward. Before 2020, I want to say that countries, although they would have met, deal with an issue, decide on an issue, but when that activity would have completed, they go back to their various countries and try to do what they were doing before. But after 2020, we are now seeing the political will by the heads of government in CARICOM to move this process forward. And that is very good for us. That augurs well for the Caribbean, where you have the head of state now. They have recognized the importance of the agri-food system. They have recognized for us to survive as a region that we come as one and we produce as one. That is why over the last 3 years, although Guyana have been actively and aggressively developing its own agriculture sector, move this process forward in our country, we have been also working with other countries in the region to help them to move their sector. For example, Barbados, whose economy was built on only on tourism. We know that tourism is the main revenue earner in that country. We are now working with them to set up their shade houses. We have about 25 shade houses we are already set up in Barbados. We are now working with them to start the production of brackish water shrimp. Who would have imagined a tourist island in Barbados, a place called Brown Pond, will produce brackish water shrimp that we are producing in Guyana? We are working with the Eastern Caribbean countries. Recently, only last week, the minister from St. Lucia, the Honorable Minister from St. Lucia, the Agriculture Minister, and his team was in Guyana to see what we are doing so that they can replicate that in St. Lucia. Of course, the Honorable Prime Minister was in Guyana, who had a discussion with the President, and he wants us to also push for St. Lucia to have these kinds of development. And those are countries whose economy was built on tourism and banana and things like that. So we are moving. And I think programs like these are important to bring stakeholders together, to train stakeholders together so that we can move the process forward.
In underscoring the importance of an agriculture traceability system, Minister Mustafa stressed that an effective one can promptly identify, single out, and remove unsafe food products from the market.
We have heard all about the projects. We have heard the importance of these projects because it holds immense importance for Guyana as we address critical challenges while unlocking new opportunities for growth and development. And as Minister of Agriculture, it brings me immense pride to be here before you and share the exciting development that lies ahead. These two projects will enhance our agriculture capacity with the support from the Caribbean Development Bank and facilitated by the European Union Economic Partnership Agreement, the CARIFORUM, and the CARICOM Standby Facility. The agriculture sector of Guyana is currently undergoing rapid transformation, as I mentioned, as many initiatives are being executed to ensure the availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability of food, driven by both the public and private sector. And we have in Guyana a very healthy relation with the private sector, where government, and we have a lot of PPPs, partnership, for example, with the new crops that we have embarked on. Government is doing the infrastructure. We have built massive infrastructure development in the Takama Savannah. We have built the road, we have built the silos, we are now building a wharf, and there's a consortium there with private investors who are doing the planting with the corn and soya. That's the kind of partnership augurs well for us. And we have been moving with various private sector. For example, we have one of the largest hydroponic farm in the Caribbean that is at Monrepo, right here, at the back here, private-public partnership. So that augurs, we have been moving in that sector. The policy implemented by the Ministry of Agriculture are aligned globally with achieving the SDGs. That's the most important one. Guyana has prioritized food security, climate change, agriculture financing as priority areas as we seek to achieve zero hunger, SDGs 2. In 2024, $72.6 billion was allocated this year to the agriculture sector in our national budget to continue our agriculture development both nationally and regionally. And I mentioned some of the works that we have been doing regionally, and we are seeing exciting times in Guyana where the entire agriculture sector is being transformed. Not only we are seeing massive growth in the livestock sector, but if I could mention in the aquaculture sector, we have seen over 600% growth. This morning I was so elated when I was coming here. The principal fisheries officer sent me a report that for January we have produced 94,000 kilograms of brackish water shrimp. And when we started out, they used to produce 10,000 kilograms. So that shows where we started and where we are today. And that is the most aggressive sector in terms of growth in the agriculture sector, the aquaculture. And aquaculture sector, aquaculture activity now is becoming an industry in Guyana. We are seeing more and more people are getting involved, and this here will become a very lucrative sector in the agriculture sector. Very shortly, in a matter of month, in another month time, we will start the production of prawns, freshwater prawns coming out of Guyana. And those things have, those areas, those sectors have the capacity to bring a large set of revenue to the people who are doing those production. Further, to advance the CARICOM agri-food system agenda, the approach includes strategic partnership and regional collaboration between government, international partners, and the private sector, in keeping with the mandate of reducing the food import bill by 25% by 2025. And I talk about it. The first project, the development of a food products traceability system for pineapple and leafy greens in Guyana, is a transformative initiative that underscores our commitment to ensure quality and safe food. A traceability system in agriculture and the food sector is particularly important, and an effective one can promptly identify, single out, and remove unsafe food products from the market. And we are having a lot of that in our market in Guyana. I'm hoping that these things can eradicate it and remove it. Food traceability is a requirement for access to specific regional or international markets. For Guyana to become a major exporter of agriculture products, we are ensuring that systems are in place for us to meet all the requirements. And I mentioned some of the systems. Also, I want to say that Guyana is building a regional food hub. We have started last year, and this year will be. We have allocated another $800 million to continue the building of a food hub on the Linden-Soos-Dyke Highway, so that we can distribute food across the Caribbean. And with the intended ferry to come on board with Trinidad, Guyana, Barbados, and Guyana, that will help us tremendously to boost inter-regional trade, move product from one country to the next.
Minister Mustafa told those gathered that as a region that is described as the most disaster-prone one, it is important that safeguards be in place. One such safeguard being insurance.
During the pandemic, we have seen what many countries around the world who had large sums of money, large financing, were unable to procure food because there was a scarcity of food, there was a downturn in production. And I think that we have to move if we want to survive as a region. We are the second most disaster-prone region in the world. At the ministerial task force level, we are working now to have an insurance product where we can have an insurance company to compensate farmers. When I became Minister of Agriculture, the first year in my office, we had one of the most devastating floods in the history of Guyana, the worst flood. And we had to find money from government's coffers to go back and give the farmers to go back to the land. We made available $7.8 billion to give relief to farmers. But when you have and let me tell you, government can give all the amount of money, but farmers will never compensate. That will not be enough for farmers to compensate them. So an insurance product will be good for us in the Caribbean to move this. And we are moving. We have two prospective companies, and I am hoping that very shortly we can move the process forward.
Referring to the bovine tuberculosis and bovine brucellosis traceability project, Minister Mustafa said it will improve market access for the nation's cattle farmers and will also address critical issues impacting the local livestock sectors, as these diseases not only pose significant health risks to cattle but also to humans and hinder market access.